the holy grail of crypto, breeding natively digital assets. Flint West reporting. We keep circling the wrong prize. Every cycle, the industry rallies around a new convenience. Faster payments, cheaper settlement, cleaner UX, and mistakes it for freedom. Stablecoins, tokenized treasuries, tokenized stocks, tokenized gold. The promise is always the same: efficiency without consequence, modernization without trade-offs. But convenience is not sovereignty, and efficiency is not independence. Stablecoins are not a breakthrough in monetary freedom. They are the eurodollar system reborn on-chain. Foreign demand for dollars did not disappear when the US banking system became restrictive. It routed around it. Offshore banks, correspondent networks, balance sheet IOUs, eurodollars were a market response to a real need. Stablecoins follow the same pattern. They are useful because they are dollar adjacent. They are fast because they sit on blockchains. And they are governable because they are issued, redeemable, and enforced by law. That last part is not a flaw. It is the feature. A system that can be frozen, traced, blacklisted, or subpoenaed is a system that can be leveraged. The moment stablecoins scale, they inherit the full weight of monetary policy, sanctions enforcement, and geopolitical pressure. The process becomes the punishment. Friction is no longer a side effect. It is the deterrent. Some will say they have nothing to hide. Until they do. Until a transaction is delayed. Until an account is flagged. Until the burden of proof shifts from the accuser to the holder. Tokenized real-world assets suffer the same fate, only more honestly. RWAs cannot escape their dependency on fiat rails, custodians, registries, and courts. A tokenized stock is not permissionless if ownership must be approved, tracked, and frozen. A tokenized bond is not sovereign if settlement ultimately depends on a legal claim enforceable by a jurisdiction. There is no world in which a U.S. equity or treasury circulates freely without a clear chain from issuer to holder, with controls embedded at the wallet level. That is not a bug in the system. That is the system asserting itself. Permissionless rails do not redeem permissioned assets. This is the enforcement layer problem, and it is where most crypto narratives collapse under pressure. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Privacy at the transaction layer is insufficient if asset origination itself is permissioned. Obfuscating flows does not matter if ownership is already known, registrable, and revocable. This is why regulators tolerate spot markets for certain assets but resist derivatives. Spot is bounded. Derivatives introduce leverage, synthetic exposure, balance sheet netting, and behavioral opacity. They obscure not just coins, but capital behavior. And capital behavior is what states ultimately care about. This is also why privacy coins face pressure at the edges. Buying them through KYC'd exchanges collapses anonymity at entry and exit. What remains is transactional privacy, not sovereignty. Useful, but incomplete. A tool, not a foundation. Against this backdrop, Bitcoin stands apart, not because it is perfect, but because it is pure. Bitcoin survives not because it is private at the edges, but because it is sovereign at the core. It is a natively digital asset. It is not redeemable for anything else. It has no issuer to call, no registry to subpoena, no vault to seize. Its asset, its settlement layer, and its issuance are not separate components, but one system. It can be earned without permission, held without disclosure, transferred without approval. On-ramps expose it, off-ramps expose it. But neither is required for the system to function. Trade can happen peer-to-peer. Value can move entirely on-chain. And when routed through private payment layers like Lightning, transactional history collapses into noise. Not invisibility, but camouflage. Enough to break mass surveillance and behavioral profiling. That is not accidental. That is design. Which brings us to the real frontier. The future of permissionless finance does not belong to better rails. Rails are already here. Faster block times, cheaper fees, more throughput, none of that solves the core problem. What is missing are assets worthy of those rails. The holy grail of crypto is not tokenization. It is origination. We know how banks originate credit. They issue debt instruments backed by legal enforcement. Crypto must learn how to originate assets backed by nothing but code, scarcity, and utility. Assets that are born digital, live digital, and die digital if they fail. NFT art exposed the difficulty of this task. When value rests primarily on narrative, taste, or social consensus, it is fragile. A well-constructed critique can collapse the asset. Links rot, platforms censor, meaning dissolves, the cheese holes appear. Natively digital assets must be immune to narrative torpedoes. Their value must be anchored in objective properties, provable scarcity, irreversible consumption, durable utility, or indispensable coordination. They must survive hostile jurisdictions not because they are hidden, but because there is nothing to seize. This is asset farming, not asset wrapping. Wrappers depend on off-chain promises. Farmers cultivate systems that stand alone. Until we learn how to breed natively digital assets, assets that can be earned, held, and transferred entirely within the digital domain, permissionless finance will remain a veneer over permissioned power. Efficient, elegant, and ultimately governable. Bitcoin proved it is possible. Everything else is still a hypothesis. The work now is not to optimize the old world on-chain, but to grow something the old world cannot control. Flint West signing off.